Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to bring up now for you, for the next few moments, Mr. Shane Krauser.
Wow, did I really have to follow that? Really? Did I really have to do that? Krista, that was unbelievable. Thank you so much. It is an honor to have been asked to speak at this forum. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited for the things that are happening. Krista hit the nail on the head. The tide is turning in this country. I had a colleague of mine who is also a professor, and he had assigned his students to write a paper on the Constitution. And the papers were turned in, and he came across one paper that stuck out more than others, and it said this: "Too many people take the USS Constitution for granted." Really? The Constitution is a document, it is not a ship. All right, it's time for us to learn about that document. I had an interaction with one of my students just this last week. In my constitutional law course, I was talking to them about how we need to change things, how we need to go back to some of these original principles. And one student chimed in and said this: "Shane, I feel the passion, but you know what? We're never going to change things to the degree that you want us to believe." And I said, I know history, and I know that 56 people sat down and agreed that they were going to move forward with independence. They signed the Declaration of Independence, and as a direct result of that, we are here. So I know if 56 people can change things, the American Academy for Constitutional Education is going to change this country in more ways than one. You have a choice here today. And when I think about the choice that I have, I often think of the speech that General Washington gave to his troops on December 31st of 1776. If you remember, just a week prior, he'd won a significant battle as he crossed the Delaware. And his troops lined up because their time was up. And as he lined them up, he said, "Who will step forward? Who will stay another term? Who will fight for this battle for freedom?" And not one step forward. And then he says, "My brave fellows, you have done all that I've asked you to do, and more than reasonably could be expected. You have experienced turmoils and hardships, and we know not how to spare you. But your country is at stake. Your wives, your houses, and all that you hold dear. If you will stay but 1 month longer, you will have an opportunity to render a service to this country and to the cause of liberty that you will probably never be able to experience under any other circumstance." When I hear this, I hear George Washington crying out in 2011, "What will you do, Shane? Will you step forward?" And what America needs is people of courage. What America needs is people that are willing to once again pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to something bigger than themselves. What America needs is people that will give up their time, their talents, and their resources to this great cause. What America needs is people that truly understand what is at stake. America needs people that will step forward and start demanding constitutional adherence and stop simply letting politicians and those that represent us get away with certain sound bites. No, there's a big problem in this country, and I know I'm preaching to the choir on this. There's a big problem in this country. But my hope is as you walk away today, that you recognize that the problem is not too big to be fixed. This problem can be fixed, but it's going to take one of us at a time stepping forward and asserting the power of the people. You know, we often we look at the problem, and oftentimes when we talk about the problem, we think about things like health care. Now, health care is a problem and what's happening in this country. But health care is merely a symptom of the problem. But I want to talk about the symptom for just a moment. What the federal government has told us is that they can force us to buy something we may not need, we may not want, or we cannot afford. They told us that they have the power to legislate in areas that they have no right to legislate, to take money they have no right to take. They've told us that they can legislate in any area that they wish, including toilets. We know that they legislate in the area of toilets, and even the amount of sugar that can be used by producers of ketchup. How did this come to be? How is it that a group of people in Washington, D.C. suddenly tell us that they're going to decide what's best for the people? How did it become this way? The bottom line is that tyranny doesn't come to a people overnight. Tyranny comes on the doorstep and is gradually implemented, slowly but surely. Freedom is slowly taken from the people until you wake up and you have one monster government at your door. A monster government that claims to be able to regulate any activity, to tax any behavior, and to demand conformity in various areas. It's time for the American people to stand up and simply, again, assert their authority. We have an obligation. We have a responsibility. In fact, we know, Ben Franklin told us, that liberty is a great responsibility, and that is why most men fear it, because there's a great responsibility that comes along with it. You know, I love this Constitution, and I love this country. And the one thing, as we walk away tonight, that we cannot do is nothing. Many of you may have seen the movie Patriot. And this movie is a story about a man by the name of Benjamin Martin. And Benjamin Martin had served in the French Indian War. And he had served honorably. And he gets married and has children. And there comes a time in his life where he has children that are old enough to serve when the Revolutionary War breaks out. Benjamin Martin says, I am not going to serve. I've done my time. I've given my service to this country. I'm not going to do anything. But one of his sons elects to serve. And it turns out that his son is captured by the British. And he is absolutely distraught at what has happened. And he's sitting down with his wife, and his wife says this, Benjamin, you've done nothing wrong. You've done nothing wrong. To which he responds, I've done nothing, and for that I am ashamed. I've done nothing, and for that I am ashamed. What will you do when you walk away from this? Will you do like Mr. Leeper has done and start a blog? Will you start a Facebook page? Will you establish little meetings in your neighborhood? Will you talk to your coworkers about this thing that transcends all of us? Let me give you an example. The American Academy for Constitutional Education met with one of 20 executive directors in the United States 2 weeks ago. As we sat down with him for 3 hours, and he said, what's your vision, Shane? And I said, I'm going to change the country. And he looks at me and he says, you're going to change the country. Tell me how you're going to do this. And I began to outline things to him, what our plan was, and how we were going to do this. And I told him, this has nothing to do with it. This is not cliche. This is going to happen. I'm telling you, this will happen. And as I explained our vision to him over the course of 3 hours, I want to tell you what happened. This man began to weep in his office. He cried. And he says, Shane, tell me what you need. Tell me who you want me to contact. Do you want me to contact the other 19 executive directors in the United States to get things done so you can move into the private schools? Of course. But here's what's even more powerful. This man was a liberal Democrat. And he wept over the message that the Academy brings to the table. This message of the Constitution transcends politics. It transcends campaigns. It transcends personalities. And it transcends issues. If you understand how the Constitution operates and what it's designed to do, dealing with the many issues that this country is dealing with become simple to solve. But until we get back to demanding constitutional adherence, there is going to be no real resolution to these problems. And so here, again, I ask you, what will you do? Telemachus lived in the 5th century, and he was a monk. And he was shy, he didn't really like dealing with people, but he felt like God told him to go to Rome. Telemachus went to Rome. And as he arrived in Rome, here's what he saw. He saw people gathering in the Colosseum. What's going on? Telemachus followed these people into the Colosseum, and what he saw disturbed him greatly. People being stabbed, flesh versus flesh, sword versus sword, people literally being killed, and the people observing this shouting, excited, who will win? And then Telemachus stands up. This little man stands up and says, in the name of Christ, stop this thing. In the name of Christ, forbear. And in this sort of amphitheatrical setting, everyone could hear what he was hearing, what he was saying, including all of royalty. He cries out again, in the name of Christ, stop this thing. And he begins to run towards the center of the arena. And what would become almost a comical sideshow, people yell out, put him through, put him through. And he was stabbed. And he laid on the ground in the middle of this Colosseum. And Telemachus cries out one more time, in the name of Christ, stop this thing. And as this man lay bleeding and dying, one person stood up and walked out. And then another, and then another, and then another, until this Colosseum was empty. And then one historian writes this, many other things were brought to bear. Many other things were brought to bear. But the death of Telemachus crystallized the opposition so that there was never a gladiatorial fight in the Colosseum again. That is a true story. The power of one individual who comes to the table with the ammunition needed. There is nothing else that you need to resolve the issues of the day, and if you have a constitutional framework to work with. If the Constitution is your ammunition, we solve these problems. And so America needs to rise up. Patriots, step forward. Those who love liberty, stand up. Those who honor the Constitution, speak up. Because America must understand that the Constitution is not the problem. The Constitution, emphatically, is the answer. Thank you.